It's match day as Aberdeen travel down the road to Tannadice to face winless Dundee United. Kick-off is at 6 o'clock tonight. Here's the other fixtures in the Cinch Premiership. The early kick-off is at McDermott Park between St Johnstone and Celtic. Hibs take on Motherwell. Livingston play Ross County. Rangers are at home to St Mirren. And tomorrow, Kilmarnock face Hearts. Let's put that all into context in terms of the table. So Aberdeen are currently in 5th position, and if results go our way today, we could find ourselves back up in 3rd position. Hi everybody, a very good morning and welcome to the preview show ahead of the Dundee United game. We've got plenty coming up today. It's a bit of a busy show. A little bit later we'll be speaking to former defender Phil McGuire, who pops in for a chat, and I'm also going to be speaking to reporter from Aberdeen Live, Rory Britain, as him and I talk about Jim Goodwin's ban. So, I'll be predicting the team news in just a moment. Please feel free to get in touch on YouTube. I'm going to start today's show by offering you my own thoughts on Jim's ban. First and foremost, I was baffled by that decision, like so many of you as well. It's completely disproportionate with bans that the governing body have handed out in recent times. And we saw in recent times a ban that was handed out for behaviour which is morally and ethically unacceptable in any walk of life or society, yet Jim's ban was more severe. We've all seen it, the comments that were attributed to a fellow Scottish Premiership manager in the aftermath of a game in Edinburgh last season. And the same terminology, which could be deemed as being offensive and not in the best interests of Scottish football, was used in a post-match interview. Yet no action was taken. So for me, the thing that troubles me the most is the inconsistency of it all when this ban was handed out. I personally would like to see the written reason behind the ban and the transparency from the governing body. What I hope going forward is that common sense prevails when Aberdeen begin their appeal process, because it is troubling and it's damning, and I really hope that the powers that be see that, come to their senses, and this ban is reduced. And let's be honest, all this needed was a slap on the wrist. All it needed was for somebody to take a hold of Jim and say to him, just be mindful of your future conduct and the terminology that you use. That's my personal opinion. Tell me your opinion and keep it obviously clean and respectful. And obviously I'll do my best to read your comments out today. Okay, let's crack on. I'm going to predict the team news for today. And I have to be honest, I think Jim will only make one change today. I think what will happen is that Liam Scales will come back in and Marley Watkins will drop out. So Ross will go back into his normal midfield position. And I think because Matt Kennedy played so well and won the sponsors man of the match last week, I think he will retain his position in the team. And I have a feeling that Jim might do what he did at Easter Road and maybe go with a 4-4-2 formation. Here's the match stats on the game. So Aberdeen have only secured 2 wins in their last 22 away league games. We've drawn 7, we've lost 13, and just 1 in our last 14, which came against St Johnstone back in August. So 1 in 14. Aberdeen boss Jim Goodwin is unbeaten in his last 6 league meetings with Dundee United. And Dundee United have won both of their last 2 home league games against Aberdeen. The referee for today's game is Willie Collum. Right, let's introduce to you our first guest. So I caught up with trainee reporter from Aberdeen Live, Rory Britain, to basically discuss today's game, but more importantly, discuss Jim Goodwin's ban. And this is how the conversation went. Hi, Rory, great to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to jump on, because I know how busy you are, particularly on match day. So let me get your personal thoughts on the ban, first of all?
I just think it's ridiculous. I mean, every manager in this league always comes out after a game with sort of thoughts, feelings, opinions. There are these press conferences after games. They're designed to allow managers to express their thoughts on the game. To be given an 8-game ban for calling out what clearly did look like dodgy tactics from Ryan Porteous and just call it as you see it, to get 8 games when there's been punishments with the shorter length for far more severe things. It just feels so over the top from the SFA, and it's a massive loss for Aberdeen now not having him on the touchline for some of. I don't want to necessarily say season-defining games, but
Mm.
they've got this immediate 6-game ban. You've got games with Hearts, Rangers, Hibs again. You've got a cup quarter final that gets you back to hand, and it's a massive, massive problem that and it's all for calling it as he saw it on the day.
We'll continue to talk about the ban, but I was quite interested to know what sort of reaction you got from those who follow your page online.
Well, yeah, they've been quite quick to go for it by the jugular, really. I mean, the game with Hearts last season where Robbie Nielsen appeared to call Lewis Ferguson's tactics cheating, they're very quickly to bring that back up and say, oh, but Nielsen didn't get anything, but we get 8 games. What's that about? And we've had comments on various different bands currently going on across the top flight, but it's mostly just been sheer anger and frustration at a manager getting 8 games for simply speaking his mind.
You see, this is where the inconsistency of it all really is troubling for so many of us, the fans, when we see the governing body and the inconsistencies that appear to be there. And you mentioned the Robbie Nielsen incident. So, just to reiterate, Jim was charged under Rule 73 and 77, which was making offensive comments and not acting in the best interests of Scottish football. But the exact same terminology, quote, blatant cheating, was used by Robbie Nielsen. So I don't understand why there appears to be one rule for one and one rule for another. And this is where I think it's very important that the SFA actually come out and be transparent with us, the fans, and give their own explanation for the reasoning behind the ban. Do you think we need to see that more from the governing body?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think the benefit of coming out and just giving an explanation that, we don't need a Bible passage in like just a short, simple statement, just saying, here, this is why, this is what we feel warranted said suspension, just something to stop what has been brought up among fans with this suspension, just this sheer frustration at seeing one manager do the exact same thing as Goodwin and get nothing for it. Just it it's not a good look for the game. It's not a good look for the league in at all. And it really they've come out and explained stuff with the Kyle Lafferty hearing that's coming up, and explains Derek McInnes's comments on his frustration at the hearing having to be pushed to the 20th, I believe it is.
Hmm.
So they've explained that. They've shown they can come out and explain something. So I think just a brief statement just to say why it warranted 8 games, it would just be so much more beneficial.
The other thing that I find slightly troubling is that the emotional side of the game is completely forgotten when these decisions are being made. And when I say that, as we know, straight after a game, when managers go into press conferences and do post-match interviews, the adrenaline is still very much flowing. The emotional side of the game is still very much part of their thinking. And I can't help but think that this has to be taken into consideration. Now, on the day, Jim believed that a very soft penalty was given, that they gained an advantage by the actions of Ryan Porteous, which eventually led to our defeat. So he was angry, he was frustrated. And what I don't get is why that is never taken into consideration, which makes me think that the people that govern our game don't understand the emotions of the game. Because if they did, surely a slap on the wrist would have sufficed here by saying to him, look, you can't use terminology like you used. You cannot come out and say the things that you said. So please, going forward, just watch the way that you use your terminology and watch your conduct. Am I sort of overthinking this, or am I getting it? What do you think?
No, I think you are. I mean, so I remember even after the 5-0 win over Livingston, we had David Martindale come in the room for a chat after the game, and he looked like he was really struggling to put words together because he was obviously, as you would be after a 5-0 defeat, gutted, and he
Yeah.
was struggling. If they could take into consideration that managers are going to be pretty raw after an incident like that, and they're going to possibly say something that when they sit down a couple of hours later, they think, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. It has to be taken into account. But the way that these working match days are, you feel like you're barely down the tunnel and suddenly they're coming in and having a chat with you. So they're hardly given a chance, it feels like, to even speak to their players some days, bar a couple of moments. And obviously, if you're going back into that Aberdeen dressing room after that game at Hibs, the first thing you're going to get is just frustration and disappointment, and that's going to then be conveyed through you, isn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't appear that there's any sort of understanding that a manager is very likely going to speak his mind. And why shouldn't they?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, just to finish off, obviously we've got a big game coming up. We've got 4,000 fans travelling down to Tannadice, which is just a phenomenal effort. I'm hoping that this ban doesn't take any gloss of potentially what could be a really good game later. How do you see the approach?
Well, obviously they're going into a game against a team that are still yet to win in the league, and they've been in a good run of form despite picking up 3 defeats on the road. So I'd like to think that off-field dramas aside, this should be a comfortable sort of Saturday night for Aberdeen. This should be a nice, straightforward game. That's what you would hope.
Mm,
But I do think that, as you would expect at any club, when they've just had their manager sanctioned the way they have, there's probably going to be a lot of fans wanting to make their thoughts very much known. And with it being as severe a punishment as it is, I think you can easily expect some sort of reaction or backlash. But again, 4,000 heading down, a really sort of, the Dons team's full of confidence at the minute. And you'd like to think that initial sort of reaction to the 8-game ban and everything, once the football takes over, you'd like to think that would shift out of the way pretty quickly.
yeah, brilliant. All right, thank you so much for jumping on. Enjoy tonight's game, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Cheers, Ali.
Thanks, mate. Bye bye. So, in terms of the manager, let's have a quick look to see what he has actually said. Now, this press conference was given ahead of the ban. So, Jim has said about today's game, I don't like spending too much time thinking or talking about the opposition. We've done all our homework on Dundee United. We've given the utmost respect during the week with the analysis that we have done and shown to the players. But I really want us to focus on what we can do to them and where we feel that we can hurt them. Let me just give you a little bit more information about how the actual ban works in terms of match day. So basically, Jim is not allowed anywhere near what is deemed as the playing zone 75 minutes before kickoff. So the playing zone basically means touchline, dressing room, and the tunnel. And he's not allowed to go in those areas 15 minutes after full time as well. So that is where it stands. Right, let's read out some of your comments before we welcome Phil McGuire. So many of you have just been absolutely baffled by this decision. Kaiser has come on and said, good morning, fit like everybody. He is still raging about Jim's ban, an utter disgrace, he called it. Erica has come on and said good morning. She said about the ban, very harsh, absolutely ridiculous. Paul Donaldson has come on and said good morning. Paul went on to talk about Connor Barron, where particularly he's hoping he might get a couple of minutes towards the end of the game today. So hopefully Connor will be back in the playing squad today. Where are we? Kaiser went on to say that he thinks Dundee United will go up a gear against us today. Robbie the Pict has come on and said, Mon Aberdeen, eclectic soup. I hope that's how you pronounce it. I expect the Dons to win today, but by a small margin, perhaps 2-1. So keep your comments coming in. Great to see so many of you on the channel today. Right, just before we welcome Phil McGuire, for those of you who are watching for the very first time, hi, how are you? Thank you for jumping on board and watching, and please feel free to subscribe to the channel. So, I caught up with former Aberdeen defender Phil McGuire from his home not far from Dundee, and we spoke about his time at the club, we spoke about the game later today, and we also spoke about Jim Goodwin's ban. Here is Phil McGuire. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for jumping on and spending some time with me today. Obviously, there's only one big news story. Let me get your thoughts on the ban.
It's harsh. I do think it's harsh. I think in the current climate, in the current game, everything's monitored, right down to your compliance officers all over these sort of interviews, and anything that says that could be, a flashpoint, let's say. Now, I don't know that the full terms of what Jim's used, whether he's used the cheat word or he has cheated, but I think there has been history there. And I think it's one in which, a 6-game ban is fairly severe for it. I don't know if it's maybe a case of making an example of Jim at this stage.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. Because you have to play a big influence as a manager, and it's something that the club are going to have to deal with. I do believe that today they've come out to say that they're maybe going to try and fight this. So there may be little clauses where if they're appealing this, maybe Jim can be available for specific games until it's obviously upheld or it's carried on.
Let's carry the conversation forward purely from a professional football player's point of view. So how much would it affect the players' preparation ahead of the game against Dundee United?
I think in terms of the preparation, all that won't be affected during the week 100%, because the manager's there, so he's getting his points across. They'll be looking at Dundee United, the analysis, the areas where they think they could exploit Dundee United tomorrow evening. I think what is really going to be effective is, as a player, if things aren't going right or if you need that change, it's that interaction, the relationships that you have with your manager.
Okay.
He'll have key relationships within that squad where he could really maybe lean on to, drive the team forward or get his points across, and not having that influence and character there, because he is the manager. It can be difficult, but they've got a great backroom staff there, and I'm sure that the information that has to get across to the players will come through those channels. But for me personally, I like to see the manager there and being the one to sort of drive that.
So I'm kind of guessing then by your answer that players will miss the influence of the manager being on the sidelines. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Your manager's there, and that's just how football is. You look at the sidelines, your manager's there. Now, when you look and he's not there, then you're looking for the guidance. So yes, he's got a capable backroom team, and they'll step up to the plate, and they'll obviously carry out their duties very diligently as well. But for me and the players, the way I was brought up, it's that influential character in your manager, the reassurance, the tactical knowledge of what he sees is really important. So that the communication, I know for a fact that we always communicated between the coaching staff and the manager. He'll have his earpiece, the phones, whatever that layup is. But it's for me, you want to see something right in front of you, whether that's on the touchline and then obviously in the dressing room at half time, because these are key parts of the game.
It's a big game. We've got a huge travelling support going down to Tannadice, so I have absolutely no reason to doubt that their backing will be anything but absolutely tremendous. It has taken a slight gloss off the game, but how do you see the game going?
I think, first and foremost, I think the backing from the Aberdeen fans is always tremendous. going back to my days, at Tannadice and Dens Park, we used to, always bring 4,000 or 5,000 to these games, and they were great games. It was that fairly local derby with Dundee United. Actually, to be fair, I had a very good record at Tannadice. I don't think I ever lost when I played at Tannadice, so it was a really good record. But I know in the current days, I think Aberdeen's last win at Tannadice was actually back in about 2016, I believe, in the league. It's been followed up by a couple of draws and a defeat. So the game itself, they're going to know the results from during the day.
Yeah.
A win tomorrow and results going their way, it could propel them up to, I think, maybe third place in the league. So, for me, there's a wee carrot there. Teams are playing before, so they could see what the picture looks like. Dundee United are in no great form themselves. I think their last win at home was in the Europa League, right. When they played AZ, when they won their victory. So they'll be under pressure. And I think for Aberdeen, it'll be a case of if they can get at United early, get them on the back foot, you could quite quickly see the home crowd turning against them. Yes, it's a change of manager for Dundee United, and they're still trying to adapt their own philosophy on their team. But I think Dundee United are there to be got at. And Aberdeen are coming in on the back of an excellent performance last week at home against Kilmarnock, in which by all accounts they've dominated large parts of this game, scored 4 goals, and also the goals have been spread about the team. So I think they've got to go in this game confident that on the back of the previous victory that they've had, and go and build something, because it is quite a difficult 6 or 7 games ahead for Aberdeen as well. I know there's a cup game sandwiched in, but there's some testing games, and they need to start looking up towards that top end of that league.
Mate, just to finish off, I'm just intrigued. Do you still keep in touch with your former teammates?
It's like anything else. I think the power of social media, with the Facebook and WhatsApp. So, we'll have messages. There's 2 or 3 that still keep in touch. Big Eugene Daddy and Eric Delamu, speak to Darren Mackey now and again, and Kev McNaughton and things. So from those days. So yeah, it's I think we've all got different lives now. Yeah. We're men as well. Men never speak. We know that. But when you don't speak to someone for so long, then send a wee text. It's just like it was yesterday that you just spoke to them. So just recently we was up in Aberdeen for the charity for kids, Cash for Kids. So it was great to catch up with, Darren and stuff. I speak to Darren quite often, Darren Young, and catching up with former players. And it was great. It's a great setup, and it's just like being back in the olden days where you had that mixture of the experienced players when I was coming through. Now I'm experienced. You see some of the younger ones that are there. So yeah, we keep in touch now and again. But as I say, we've all got lives, and we're all going different paths now. So but it's nice when you can catch up and when you can. Yeah.
And just for folk that don't know, what are you up to these days?
Well, currently I'm heavily involved in football coaching anyway. It's fantastic. It's obviously senior football, and we're looking to progress into the Highland League, which unfortunately we didn't do last year when we won the league because of the rule changes and having a ground licensed at the time. So we had to sort of forfeit going up to the Highland League, which would have been great. In saying that, our reward was qualifying for the Senior Scottish Cup for the first time in the club's history. And ironically, we're the junior team, and we've reached the second round of the Senior Scottish Cup, which is unheard of for a small club like Carnoustie. And we play for Martin United, actually, one of my former teams.
No way, really?
In the next round, we just beat Rothless in the previous round 3-1, and we play for Martin at home in a couple of weeks' time. So I do that along with I manage and run the elite men's programme at St Andrews University, which is it's a fantastic facility. Dundee United actually use the facility across at St Andrews, but the programme hugely academic for these students that are coming in, because that's the only way they're accepted is on their academic status. But working with scholarships from the States, from Europe, is fantastic. As I say, we're training 4 or 5 times a week, so it's as full time as you can be. Although for me it is part time, because they are students. And again, still in the football, I run my own football academy. So I'm non-stop with football. The wife loves football. our brother played football. I played with me at Aberdeen, Jamie Winter. So
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, I'm married to Jamie's sister. Her dad played football with Forfar and St Johnstone, so it's quite a footballing family. And my boys are heavily involved in football.
Brilliant.
Oldest is doing a electrical engineer in Aberdeen. The middle one, split loyalties here because he's with Dundee United actually as a goalkeeper.
Okay.
He's 14, so I want Dundee United to do well. So if I have to see a result tomorrow, I'll sit on the fence and go with a scoring draw.
Brilliant. Phil, thank you. It's been fantastic getting you on. It's lovely to catch up. And going forward, I'd love to get you on again.
Yes, no problems at all, Ali. Anytime, and thanks very much, and good luck with the show.
Thank you, mate.
Thank
Catch
you.
up with you soon. Have a nice weekend.
Bye-bye.
My thanks to Phil. So as most of you know, I'm right into my history, particularly about the football club. So this is what has happened at the football club on this day in our club's history. Back in 1955, the league championship flag was unfurled at Pittodrie for the first time in the club's history ahead of the Dons game against the Queen of the South, and the Dons won that day 3-2. Back in 1966, on this day, former Aberdeen captain and legend Martin Buchan made his competitive debut for the first team against Dunfermline at East End Park. And back in 1977, Drew Jarvie scored a hat-trick as Aberdeen beat Alex Ferguson's St Mirren 4-0 in Paisley. And thanks to that victory, we went clear at the top of the table. Keep your comments coming in, lots to read out. But first, this past week, staying on the historical theme, we saw our 15th anniversary of drawing 1-1 in Ukraine against Dnipro, which took us through to the UEFA Cup group stage. So I don't know if you caught up with it, but I produced a special tribute show where I was joined by Xander Diamond and Derek Young. And I just thought you would like to see a little snippet from the show where Derek Young was talking about the onslaught in the second half of that game, which really quite amused me. I hope you enjoy this. This is what Derek Young had to say about that.
I can remember halfway through the second half, I think we had managed to get a corner or something by some miracle. And it was Barry Nick. Was turned around and I think I was standing with Scott Severin, and he's like, I've actually only touched the ball twice this half. And he said, this is us walking up to take a corner. And he says, and he says, I've only touched it. He says, two of them have hit off me. He says, I've actually not touched the ball. It's like, oh. And I was just chasing, like I said, I was just chasing this left back boy. He, like I said, he'd found a motorbike and he's up and down this left-hand side. So it was, you were kind of all doing your own job. And then when you did get the ball, it's kind of, you try and get 2 or 3, 4 quick passes in. So you're kind of breaking away up the park.
There we are, Derek Young. I thoroughly enjoyed speaking to Xander and to Derek for the show. So if you want to watch it, it's sitting on the channel as we speak. Right, let's get to some more of your comments. So many have commented today. Thank you so much for jumping on and watching as well. Right, let's go right back. So, ES88, good morning to fellow dandies. Looking forward to the shed this evening. Christopher Mainland has said 6-0 the Dons. It will all come together today. This is quite interesting from Paul Donaldson. He says, one thing Alex Ferguson was always good at was convincing his players that the media and football authorities were always against us. Maybe if Jim Goodwin can do something similar with the injustice of the punishment he's been given, he can use it to give the players a boost in their motivational team talk tonight. So it might not all be negative. Interesting thoughts. Kaiser said, good to hear from Phil again, a very decent defender for us. And ES88 came back on and said, agree with Paul Donaldson. We need to use this as ammunition and get stuck right in. Rama on the rampage. Kaiser said, if we don't concede from a corner tonight, we'll win. Derek Griffiths has said, good morning. Hi, Derek. How are you? Come on, the Dons today. Played some good football last week, so long may it continue. Scott's Hawk has said, a shout out to the Wick Reds. Long journey to head today for the troops. Let's hope we get the 3 points and a few goals to boot. Robbie the Pict said, I went to school with Martin Buchan. He said Cummings Park in Aberdeen. That's what people are asking there. So Right, guys, we are done. Thank you so much for watching today. If you are travelling to the game, safe journey down there. 4,000 of us are travelling down, which I keep saying it. It's the best away travelling support in Scotland. So proud of every single one of the Aberdeen fans. It's a phenomenal effort, especially in the current economic crisis and climate. So I applaud every single one of you. So the very best of luck to the lads today. Here's fingers crossed for a good win. Hopefully maybe take us up to third place, set us up for what is a very important month. And I'll see you again tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, for the review show. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And thanks again for being with us. See you soon. Bye for now.